All right, let's just jump right in with a pretty wild idea. What if the way we run our companies, the very idea of modern management, is fundamentally broken? What if it's become, well, completely devoid of common sense? Yeah, that's not me saying that. That's a direct quote from Henry Mintzberg, who's a total legend in management thinking. And his whole point is that so much of what we call management today, the buzzwords, the constant reorganizations, is just completely disconnected from the actual work that gets done.
So where did all this come from? Well, Mintzberg was asked to give a speech at the World Economic Forum. And here's the funny part. They told him, look, these CEOs, they have really short attention spans. So he had to boil down his entire critique of modern management into these 10 super sharp, bite-sized points. And that's what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so the absolute core of the problem, according to Mintzberg, is this huge disconnect. It's the idea that management has kind of forgotten its job. It's stopped being a service to the people doing the work, and, well, it's become a thing in and of itself, right? It's a machine that's more focused on its own rules and priorities than on the folks actually making things or talking to customers.
And you know where this whole mess starts? It starts with the picture we have in our heads, the way we visualize how a company is even supposed to work.
We all know the classic, right? The pyramid. You got the bosses at the top, everyone else at the bottom. But Mintzberg says this whole top-down thing is just wrong. It distorts reality. He suggests thinking about it like a circle instead. Now, in this model, management isn't at the top, they're in the center. And the people doing the real work, they're on the outer edge, right there with the customers. So the manager's job completely changes. You're not a boss looking down. You're a connector, a hub, linking the knowledge at the center with the action on the edge.
But instead of building those crucial connections, what do a lot of companies do? The exact opposite. They break them, and they usually do it in the name of some popular trendy management idea.
It's a practice called delayering, and I get it. On paper, it sounds great, right? Let's get more efficient. But what really happens a lot of the time is that you get rid of the very people who connect the center and the edges, those middle managers who actually know what's going on. And they get replaced with, layers of financial control, people who only see spreadsheets, not human beings. And that can just crush the soul of a business.
Mintzberg has this absolutely savage definition for it. He says delayering is when people who barely know what's going on get rid of those who do. I mean, ouch. But it's so true, isn't it? You end up with this massive brain drain, this loss of knowledge, all for a chart that looks cleaner on a PowerPoint slide.
And the crazy thing is, this whole destructive process often gets praised. It's packaged up and sold to everyone with this nice, positive-sounding buzzword, lean.
Yeah, Mintzberg doesn't pull any punches here. He just says it flat out. Lean is mean. He really questions the sanity of a system where laying off thousands of people is somehow seen as a good thing, something to be cheered on by the stock market, while the top execs' paychecks just keep getting bigger. And you have to think about the human cost here. It's just huge. When your employees are constantly afraid of losing their jobs, you're not going to get creativity or loyalty. You get fear, maybe even sabotage. Mintzberg tells this story about a bank where all the managers over 50 were convinced they were being targeted for layoffs just before their pensions kicked in. Can you even imagine the culture there? The trust? It's just gone.
So this leads us right into the next big problem, which is all about the language we use, the empty, trendy buzzwords that have kind of taken over management thinking. Oh man, we've all seen this cycle, right? 1 minute, it's total quality management. The next, it's re-engineering. Then it's all about empowerment. These big fads sweep in. They dazzle everyone for a year or two, and then, poof, they just fizzle out. And we jump to the next one without ever really stopping to think if the last one actually worked.
Let's actually take a closer look at some of these. Empowerment. It sounds fantastic, but what does it often mean in practice? It means power is something the boss gives you, like a gift, which, if you think about it, just reinforces the old top-down hierarchy. Or decentralization. A lot of times that just means you give a ton of power to a few division heads who then become totally obsessed with hitting their quarterly numbers no matter what. And my favorite, measurement. It becomes this religion where hitting the numbers on a chart is more important than actually serving the customer. The numbers become the goal, not the outcome. In fact, Mintzberg put together this brilliant, sarcastic how-to guide on how to destroy a company. It's such a perfect, darkly funny critique of this whole mindset. I mean, look at number 3. Move managers around so they never know anything but management. Or number 4, when in trouble, rationalize, fire, and divest. It's all about this shallow, numbers-first approach that completely ignores how a real business with real people actually works. And of course, the punchline: be sure to do everything in 5 easy steps. Okay, so if all of that is what's broken, what's the fix? What's the alternative? This is where Mintzberg offers a really powerful and actually pretty beautiful new way of thinking.
First, let's talk about the broken model again. He calls it management as medicine. Think about it. In this view, managers are like surgeons. They swoop in, perform some kind of radical intervention, a huge reorg, mass layoffs, and then they just leave. They leave everyone else to clean up the mess and deal with the consequences.
So what's his alternative? Management as nursing. And this is a totally different idea. This isn't about dramatic, one-off surgeries. It's about steady, consistent care. It's about nurturing, listening, and being deeply involved day in and day out. It's about helping the organization and its people to heal and thrive on their own.
And this brings us right back to that circle idea we talked about. This nursing approach is all about being in the center of things, not perched at the top. It's about reaching out to people, not reaching down at them. It's about creating real connections and a deep, genuine understanding of what's happening on the ground.
Which brings us to Mintzberg's final point. And honestly, this one might be the most challenging one of all.
See, his 10th and final musing is actually about communication itself. It's a meta-commentary that kind of turns the whole critique back on itself and maybe, just maybe, back on what we're doing right here, right now.
Here it is. He says, the trouble with today's management is the trouble with this article. Everything has to come in short, superficial doses. And that just leaves you thinking, right? It leaves us with a really provocative question. Is our hunger for quick summaries, for 10-minute speeches, and short explainers just like this one, is that actually part of the problem? Is our desire for bite-sized information a symptom of the same short-term, superficial thinking that he says is hurting our companies? It's a tough question, and definitely something worth chewing on.